Welcome to Hiiraan TV. Today we have Ilhaan Omar. She's a state legislator in Minnesota running for Congress. Welcome to the program, Ilhaan.
Thank you for having me.
Thousands of people marched downtown in Minneapolis last weekend to protest the Supreme Court decision. It's been described as a national security issue. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you for asking. I think a lot of people refer to it as the travel ban. We think of it as a Muslim ban. As you know, many of the countries that are currently now being banned from the United States are Muslim majority countries. So we know that this is going to be impacting Muslims at large and those that come from these countries. I think it is disheartening. I think it is very dangerous for us to move away from the fundamentals of our country, the ideals of this country being where you come, you seek refuge, and this country being a very welcoming one. I think this administration, Trump, is really destroying the standing of our nation and what it was built for, and so it's been a sad day, and I'm looking forward to going to Washington because it is a country of laws, and our Constitution allows for there to be check and balances. So the president can do his executive order, the Supreme Court can uphold it, and we can have Congress overturn it. And so I'm looking forward to going to Congress and creating legislation that outright bans the president from doing such a thing.
What about some of the detractors who say that the ban is under the guise of national security? Do you think there's any truth to that notion, or is it something that...
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you have a nation that was founded on the ideals of hope and the promises of a better tomorrow, to now have fear legislate what this country will become is really sad. And we are not peoples, we are not a country that, should allow us to turn our backs to people, to close our minds and hearts and borders to people who want to be part of our communities, to be part of our nation.
This is an election year that's been described as extremely crucial in determining the path that America takes in the future. It appears both the Democrats and the GOP are both ideologically divided. With so much at stake for working families, what issue is nearest to your heart?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what's happening right now, right, we're allowing fear and division and destruction to kind of take over the national discourse, and we're at a crossroads, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that are being duped by the politics of scarcity. They believe that this administration is going to be good for them because they're afraid of they're losing their livelihoods and their way of life. And for me, I think it is really important for us to infuse this conversation with a narrative that is about optimism and hope in setting the course about not only who we are, but who we want to be. I think it is important for us to talk about economic justice for working people. That is going to be a crucial conversation. We need to work in getting $50 minimum wage federally. We need to make sure that that there is paid sick and safe time, that there is flexible scheduling, that we are having a conversation about tuition-free and debt-free college, that we are fully investing in our education and recognizing that an investment in our young people is an investment in our future. It's also important that we're having a conversation investing in infrastructure, not only roads and bridges, but 21st century infrastructure. We're investing in broadband and high-speed internet, and making sure that there is and net neutrality. I think, right now when we see a country that used to be a symbol of hope become a place where there are policies that are really being driven by fear. We see people who are coming to our borders really seeking amnesty and asylum being turned away, where that's now becoming illegal. And as someone who came here as a refugee, who understands what it means to cross a border and to be treated with humanity, and to recognize that there was trauma that I went through and that my family went through, and that we were fleeing destruction and war, and that we deserved a safe place and a promise of a better tomorrow. This country should be doing that, and that's what we're going to be fighting for. So this election is very crucial, not only in setting America on a path to recognizing itself, but also making sure that there is a clear direction about where we want to go and who we want to be.
Pundits have drawn many similarities between you and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You're both strong, independent, outspoken women raised in working-class families. You're both also known for unseating long-term politicians during your electoral campaign. What were your thoughts on her campaign, and what do you think of her as a politician and as a woman?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting to see what she has been able to do. 2 years ago when I ran against the 44-year incumbent, no one thought that we would be victorious in that election. No one had really crafted a path to unseating someone who was in office for 44 years. And I think, by us exciting and instilling hope in people and having them recognize the power that they have as an electorate was really the turning point. We increased voter turnout by 37%. We had young people voting for the first time. We had people who had given up in the system voting for the first time. We had new Americans coming out and voting. And I think with what she has been able to do right now in New York, no one really thought that a young person like herself going up against a long-time incumbent and big money and big interest, that she was going to pull it off. But I knew, with recognizing her energy, her ability to articulate an agenda that was centered around people, it was going to be the kind of combination that we had seen across the country in the last couple of years, where once you are able to mobilize people around a value system, principles, and around issues, that we see change. And for so long, incumbents who have been complacent have relied on us not voting, us not having the optimism to believe in the power of our voice. And I think it's a new day. I proved it in 2016 by winning my election. And today we see it in even a larger scale with what she has been able to do. And I've been a supporter since she first started getting recognition, and I noticed her running for office. And we're really excited for her to lead the way to not only recognizing that we are in a moment, but that we are building a movement. And I'm excited to be part of that.
Great. Ms. Cortez, actually, I've seen in the news recently, she's one of the leaders in the call to abolish ICE. Do you support her in that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I've been calling for and the abolishment of ICE for a really long time. I think as someone who is Muslim and immigrant, and someone who's visibly Muslim, I've clearly understood right after the creation of ICE and by and large Homeland Security, how it was criminalizing our communities, how all of us were now becoming second-class citizens as we traveled through our airports, and recognizing that it's moved away from the purpose, and it's become an entity that has been used to vilify, demonize, humiliate, and victimize a whole slew of people. It is really important for us to say that this organization has moved away from what it was created for. There is no accountability, and when you have an organization that is supposed to provide safety, but now is really instilling fear, we have to get rid of it. We have to make sure that the people in our country feel safe, they feel hopeful, and that they recognize that we are not going to continue to fund an organization that is causing them harm.
The DFL race for Minnesota primaries is a crowded ballot that includes State Senator Patricia Torres-Ray, former Minnesota House Speaker Margaret Anderson Keller, engineer Jamal Abdullahi, and Republican Frank Drake. What sets you apart from the rest of these candidates?
Thank you for asking. It's a really crucial time. It's important for us to recognize the kind of moment we are in, and it's important to send people who are going to not only fight the Trump administration, but people who will move a progressive agenda. And I feel I am best suited for that. There are right now 10 organizations that have jumped in the race, that are organizing around issues, and all of those 10 organizations recognize that we are the best candidate to send to Washington, that having our voice at the halls of Capitol Hill is going to have a greater impact. And so I am excited to continue to build, to continue to have a conversation about our people-centered campaign, and continue to utilize all of these power-building progressive organizations that are ready to work with us in the powerful coalition that we are building, to make sure that we are able to have our policies and our agenda implemented.
You helped facilitate about $400,000 for the newly opened Somali Museum, and another $400,000 to redesign and renovate the Brian Cole Community Center. That's not to include the $170 million from the Public Works Bonding Bill. What are you fighting for if you were elected to Congress this year?
I mean, I think it's really important that the people in a representative democracy, the people that we are sending to be our voice, are very fluent, right, and recognize what our communities need. And so for me, when I first ran for office, it was important that I was not going to be a voice for the people, that I was going to be a voice with them. And so when I recognized that there was a need from the Somali Museum and in expanding funding for our culture and the arts, I wanted to move a budget that was going to invest in that. When I recognized that we had bridges that needed a repair, I wanted to make sure that we were investing in that. So that's why we did the $170 million in investing in that. I recognized that the Brian Cole Center needs to expand, that we need to do a redesign for it. So I wanted to move a budget that invested in that. When I recognized in our own community that the legislators who have been representing us have been not present, and a lot of people, young people and the elders in our community, it's hard for them to get to the Capitol. So I wanted them to be close to their legislators. So I am one of the only sitting legislators who has an in-district office. When the travel ban, the Muslim ban went into effect, I wanted to make sure that there was a resource fair that was around immigration, and that we had lawyers and people who could connect them to their congressional offices. So every 2 months we would have a resource fair. I knew that our communities needed to have a conversation. So I wanted to make sure that we had something that we called Kafi and Kulan, so that people can talk about ideas, they can share problems, and that we can come up with solutions together. So for me, right now, in going to Washington, I want to make sure that I am fighting for the things that the people care about in our district. And the people in the 5th district tell me that they want to secure an economy that works for all of them. They want to make sure that no one works a full-time job and not be able to afford food, not be able to afford housing. So I want to make sure that we get a $15 minimum wage, a living wage that is able to sustain people. I want to make sure that we recognize that housing is a right, and I want to invest not only in building new housing, but also guaranteeing affordable housing. So I want to introduce and support legislation that gives, there's a Bill of Rights for renters. I am interested in making sure that we have humane immigration process. I have a lot of people who came here just like me as refugees who recognize that the kind of process that we went through is a process that worked, and we want to make sure that that process works for other people. And our neighbors who come here for the same reason, who are undocumented, that we are guaranteeing them a path to residency, a permanent path to residency, and a path to citizenship. We want to protect and make sure that kids who have gotten a path through the DECA program remain to have that path. We want to make sure that there is TPS guaranteed for African immigrants and people of the African diaspora and other communities who access that. So I am interested in making sure that we are fighting for the people of the 5th district, that we understand that in a diverse district there are many issues that people are struggling with, and that we listen to them. So my campaign in 2016 was built on listening, building relationships, and making sure that people understood what was at stake. And so now, as I run for Congress, I want to make sure to do the same exact thing. We are building a campaign that's built on building authentic relationships with communities, a campaign that is serious about the 101 conversations and recognizing that it is important for people to see me and for them to see themselves in our campaign. And we want to continue to invest in utilizing those relationships to mobilize ourselves and organize ourselves so that tomorrow, after I get elected, we are able to secure our agenda and investment in our communities.
Awesome, great. So that's it for today. I want to thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Omar for Hiiraan in Minneapolis. Is there anything else that you want to add to?
No, thank you, Delmar, for having me. I want to tell people that the primary election is August 14th. So if they live in the 5th Congressional District, which is currently held by Congressman Keith Ellison, if they voted for Keith before, they can vote for me now. That district includes all of Minneapolis, from the south side to the north side to the southeast to the southwest. All of Minneapolis, they can vote. They can also vote if they live in Columbia Heights and Hopkins. They can vote if they live in St. Louis Park and Fridley. They can vote if they live in Bloomington and Robbinsdale. They can vote from Richfield to Edina. They can vote in Crystal and Brooklyn Center and New Hope.
Okay.
So if you live in any of those areas, please cast your ballot for us August 14th and be part of this journey that's sending me to Washington.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.